Hi guys, my name is Maria and this is my channel Tea Books Magic, and today I figured I would do a chatty video about my 2021 goals. I wasn't doing booktube at the beginning of 2021, so I never really announced my goals, but I figured this would be a good time to kind of just go over what my goals were and where I'm at. I know it's not really mid-year check-in or anything, but I like checking up on goals as we go, so I thought it would still be something to kind of fun to chat through. And essentially I want to start thinking now about how I want to rearrange my goals next year, because I'm meeting some, I'm not meeting some, so I'm kind of in that productive let's get goal setting mood. So I figured this would be a good time in general to start kind of planning for next year as well. So anyway, I guess I'll get into my goals. I'll start off with the number one goal that I've been setting for the last 3 years, and that for me has always just been a goal about consistency. I have had a lot of ups and downs ones, like spikes with my reading. A lot of times I'll read so much all at once and then I won't read for 3 months. It's kind of a all or nothing, and I wish it was more consistent. So for me, the consistency has kind of been the key word if I was going to assign anything to my goals. And essentially I want to find a way to make reading more of a habit and more of a consistent thing in my life, rather than these giant spikes of really into reading absolutely nothing, because I love reading, and I think that's just the way my personality is. A lot of times it's very hot and cold in some ways, but when I don't read as much I always miss it, so I want to just work on that consistency. So the main goal that I set for 2021 was essentially to make reading a daily habit, and so what I wanted to do, and kind of thought the best way to do that, was to read 15 minutes daily. I did not do this. So this is one that I'm going to be reassessing and kind of rewording, refocusing in on next year, because I failed this completely. I have not been reading every day. I kind of tracked it for the first few months and then I stopped tracking it, and just this has definitely not been happening. And I should mention as well that one thing that I've been trying to do with my goals is not requiring 100% success with them, because I think that that's kind of dooming yourself to failure. At least for me it is. So I set an 80% goal for this. So the goal was every month essentially to read 80% of the time, at least 15 minutes a day. Again, didn't do this, tracked it for the first few months and was good in January, February, and then I just fell off and kind of wasn't doing it. But I want to go into that same mindset and essentially next year just try and make it more of a specific time habit. So maybe read with breakfast or read before bed every day, so that there's something that's triggering me to read, rather than just this kind of tracking expectation that hasn't really been working for me. The second goal that I set was kind of along the same lines. I wanted to read at least one book a month, and I set this last year and managed to succeed on that goal, and that was a really nice one, so I brought it over to this year. I kept it at one because, again, I want to set myself up for success with goals. I usually am not the best goal setter, so for me it's if I set them too ambitiously, I'm not going to meet them, and then I'll just feel worse about myself. So low expectations, hopefully greater reward. But I set it as one book per month, and I have successfully managed to do this so far this year. Like I said, last year I also managed to read at least one book each month. I was really happy with that. There was one month this year that I barely scraped by, though. I read one book and it was, at the very end of the month I barely made it, but I am on top of this goal. Technically. My third goal was to purchase most of my books from bookstores rather than Amazon, and it was a 70% goal. So again, if at least 70% of the time I was purchasing from not Amazon, then I would count it a success. And this is one that I set because I wanted to support my independent bookstores more. I wanted to use Amazon less, partly because I'm sad what they're doing kind of the publishing industry. Not saying that anyone who orders books from Amazon shouldn't be doing that. I think everyone's decisions are themselves, but for me, I wanted to use Amazon less, and also a large part of that was because they always sent me books that were damaged. It was convenient, but on the other hand, I was always having to send them back, so for me, there were a lot of reasons to not use Amazon. However, I need to look at my purchasing spreadsheet in more detail, and I'll do this for the end of year wrap up on my goals. I think I'm succeeding on this. I don't remember that I've ordered many books from Amazon, and the few that I have were used with points, so it was I wasn't really paying money for them. But the problem I'm having is that I'm not really finding good alternatives to Amazon for pre-ordering books. There were quite a few pre-orders that I tried this year that were not through Amazon. One of them was through the author's independent bookstore that I pre-ordered ahead of time as a signed copy. It took forever to come, 2.5 months. This was my most anticipated release of the year, and I was waiting for 2.5 months. So I had to buy a copy in Barnes & Noble while that book was still shipping, and I didn't decide to buy a second copy until a good 2 weeks after it had been delayed, and there was a nightmare. So that book did not arrive, and then I ended up with 2 copies once it did finally arrive, and overall it was upsetting because it was, again, my most anticipated release and something that I had been looking so forward to for 2 years and then couldn't get my hands on. And then I recently had another issue with a pre-order where I pre-ordered it through another bookstore and the bookstore wasn't receiving it for the longest time. So then I wasn't sure if I should order it somewhere else. And then when they finally got it, it was damaged and the pages were all torn and that was the only copy they had. So now I'm having to find another place to get it. This is a Splinter King actually, which I just talked about in my last video, and something that I'm also about to be reading with Mary Beth. So we're trying to kind of align that. And then I'm also trying to, you know, read it for a readathon. So I'm just not having good luck with pre-ordering, and I don't really know what to do because I have in the past had good experience with Amazon pre-ordering. They do get it to you on the day of or the day after, and so far everywhere else that I've tried I have had really long delays and issues. I know that there's a lot of issues with the publishing industry, like delays right now in general, so that could be something where I'm, you know, comparing Amazon from 2 years ago to what, you know, might be different now. I don't actually know if Amazon also has delays, but I'm kind of in that place where I'm like, I don't know how to, I just want to be able to get my hands on the books that I'm most excited about, and a lot of times they're ones that if I go into the bookstore they also don't have them there, so it's not like I can just go drive over and buy them in person. Anyway, I don't know why I'm ranting about this so much, but in summary, not having the best luck with pre-orders. May need to go back to Amazon for that. And I'm also hearing stuff about how there's now supply chain issues with publishing, and that's freaking me out a little bit. So this went on a complete tangent. The point is, yes, I am succeeding at this goal, but I am revisiting whether or not I want it to be a goal next year, and kind of the best way to support independent bookstores without also having this huge struggle of not being able to get my hands on the book. So if you have a foolproof method of pre-ordering, let me know what your best bet has been. I know a lot of people do show up to the bookstore and just get it there, but like I said, the books that I want to pre-order are not usually in bookstores for whatever reason. So I can't always rely on that either. Anyway, this has been a total rant. Moving on. My next goal was to not buy more than 2 books at once for my TBR and not to buy sequels in advance. The whole idea behind this is that last year we had just moved from California to Washington. My library system here just isn't as good, so I am having to purchase more books, and what I'm discovering is that I went a little crazy last year and would buy a full series ahead of time, and then I'd read the first book, not like it, and have this whole series on my hands and be kind of in a position of, do I unhaul the whole series? Do I push myself through just because I have the whole series? But I also am someone who likes to binge read series, so I wanted the security of having the whole series available if I did like it. It was kind of, you know, not the best solution. So I wanted to cut down on my physical TBR for a little bit. For me, I don't like having a big physical TBR. I prefer to use my library whenever possible. And I wanted to essentially, if I was going to buy a book that I hadn't read a series of before, I wanted to just buy the first book so that I wasn't overdoing it. I have both failed and succeeded in this goal. On the one hand, I have been very good about not buying too many books for my TBR, but I have kind of failed on account of 2 series. I did purchase the entire Long Price Quartet series, the first book of which is The Shadow in Summer, and I ended up buying the whole quartet because I couldn't find them at my library. They were in general not very published, widely available books, so they weren't in bookstores easily accessible. I wanted them in hardcover, so those were on eBay. I could find them on eBay or on Amazon as secondhand, but they were a bit harder to find, so I just went ahead and purchased all 4 books because everything I'd also been hearing about this series was that the 3rd book was the most amazing, and so I was like, I'm definitely gonna make it at least to the 3rd book, so might as well have all 4, right? I've now made it through 2 of them. The first one I enjoyed, but it was like a 3.5 star read for me. It was good, promising, not amazing, not something I really enjoyed or anything. And then the second book I gave a 3 stars. Again, it wasn't bad, but I was pretty bored throughout all of it, and I am kind of at this point now where I don't want to continue on with the 3rd book, even though the entire point of me reading this was to get to the 3rd book because everyone is, you know, touts its praises so much, but at the same time, everyone that sings the praises of this 3rd book liked the first 2, so that leads me to think that I'm not going to like that 3rd one either, and I'm leaning toward DNFing this series. And again, look at me repeating past mistakes and buying the whole quartet and then not wanting to continue on. This is why I set this goal, and this is a reminder that I need to stick to this goal in future. The other series that I should mention that I also kind of broke this rule or goal with was the Farseer trilogy and Robin Hobb in general. I did buy the whole Farseer trilogy, and I've technically only read 2 books of the Live Ship Traders. I started with that series first, so I still have 1 more book to go in the Live Ship Traders, and then I'm basically would have to move on to Farseer trilogy, which is 3 books, and I did buy all 3 of those. To be fair, I did wait to buy them until I had read 2 of the books from Robin Hobb, so I kind of had an idea of her writing style. And I'm at at the point where I know that I like her writing style enough that I want to continue on and read at least Fitz's first trilogy, and then I can decide if I want to read the rest of the Realm of the Elderlings. But this one I don't really regret yet because I'm fairly certain, 99%, that I'm going to be reading it. Though again, I guess I don't always know my own mind, so hopefully this one is not one of those look back on regretfully moments, but those series I kind of didn't follow that rule for. Everything else I've actually been really good about not purchasing too much. I've basically just been buying books that I've been really anticipating. Those are all of my 2021 goals that I set for myself and where I'm at with them currently and kind of how I'm rethinking approaching them next year. I hope that this was interesting to you. I went off on a lot of tangents, but I wanted it to just be kind of a chatty video today. That's the mood I was in. Let me know if you are overall on track with your goals and if there's any that you were thinking of also rephrasing or kind of thinking of coming at them at a different angle next year so that you can be more successful with them. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a lovely day.